the so-called ceasefire talks. Let me, you mentioned that New York Times headline about how people protesting for the right to rape Palestinian prisoners is framed by the New York Times as a battle for Israel's soul. This is the Times reporting belatedly, of course, long after everyone else knew it to be true, that Israel imposed all these new demands in the ceasefire talks with the obvious aim of making sure a deal was impossible. This is how the Times spins it. The Times headline is, Israel was less flexible in recent Gaza ceasefire talks, documents show. That implies they were flexible to begin with, which of course they never were, because they're always adding new demands. And second of all, it's like, what a way to describe adding new demands that make a deal impossible. In the Times' view, it's less flexible. When in the subhead they acknowledge 5 new demands, and you read the fine print, and those 5 new demands make a deal impossible, because they include there not being a permanent ceasefire, Israel having permanent control over, and maybe Max, you can talk about this, areas including the Philadelphia corridor, and also the right to, basically harass any resident seeking to return home, and making sure that they're returning home with without weapons and whatever else Israel deems to be a security threat, which, as we know, in the past has included things like sugar and flour, which they barred from entering into Gaza at times.
Well, let's just talk about this article because it's really interesting. It says, first of all, that headline obviously went through the New York Times editorial process, which waters everything down until it says violence breaks out in Gaza when Israel slaughters people. They'll never use the active voice. So Israel's less flexible. But then documents show. How did the New York Times obtain those documents? The documents were leaked to the New York Times by probably the White House, people around Biden, because they want to send the message that Netanyahu's being intransigent and trying to extend the war for as long as possible. But they can't call him out publicly. They can't just say Netanyahu is screwing everybody, that Israel wants this war to expand, that the U.S. is going to be dragged in. There was an Axios article actually where the Biden people leaked that Biden might actually call Netanyahu out by name, but he never did it. Instead, we get this pathetic New York Times article. So that's the extent of leverage that the Biden administration is willing to use.